If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you have seen all 5 seasons of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. I will be discussing plot points from the entirety of the show, so take this as your spoiler alert. Everybody good? Then let's go. One of the most dynamic, polarizing characters in Noelle Stevenson's reboot has to be Catra. Catra spends the majority of the story as our lead antagonist. Though she is never actually the highest-ranking villain, she is a notably more active enemy than Hordak ever is, and certainly a more personal one for our heroes, particularly Adora. As the story goes on, she descends deeper and deeper into rage and despair, and her actions become more and more evil. As we all know, however, she is redeemed in the show's final season, and she plays a pivotal role in saving the universe from Horde Prime. Ever since the series concluded, the fans have been split over whether or not Catra deserved to be redeemed. It's obvious that the show wanted us to want Catra to be redeemed, but many in the fandom remain unconvinced. These are 3 of the most common points I've heard people in this camp make. Number 1, she was toxic. She physically and emotionally abused Adora, and Adora shouldn't have taken her back. Number 2, she did too much evil to be forgiven. She was beyond redemption. Number 3, she was forgiven too quickly for doing one good thing, i.e., her redemption was too easy. Before I dive into each of those points, I think it's important to start by understanding who Catra is as a person. I don't say any of this to try to explain away her evil acts, or even to justify them, but rather to give a holistic understanding of who she is, and why she made the choices she did. Catra's main goal in life is to be worth loving. She and Adora were both raised to believe that their worth came from whatever glory they could bring the Horde in battle. The difference was that Shadow Weaver praised Adora for her successes, while she denied Catra hers. Catra grew up being told she was worth nothing, she was only holding Adora back. So, when her only support system, Adora, left her, she decided to seek her worth in status and power. Every move she made in the first 2 seasons, prior to Shadow Weaver leaving the Fright Zone, was with the goal of amassing more power for herself. It's kind of like when a person gets broken up with, so they pour themselves into their job, or their exercise, or a hobby. They no longer have external validation coming from that person, so instead they seek to find validation in something more measurable, like a promotion, or a pay raise, or 6-pack abs. Catra believes that if she can attain enough power, it will fill the void in her heart. If she can achieve enough glory and status, she will prove to everyone, and to herself, that she is worth loving. Then, at the end of Season 2, Shadow Weaver escapes the Fright Zone. This is a significant blow to Catra, because although Shadow Weaver was a horrible, abusive figure to Catra, she was the closest thing she ever had to a mom. It's the second time someone significant to her has abandoned her, and it only deepens the hole in her heart. It also further cements the idea in Catra's mind that vulnerability inevitably leads to pain. This betrayal winds up being a triple whammy for Catra, because not only does Shadow Weaver abandon her, Catra later learns that she abandons her for Adora. And then Shadow Weaver later comes back to the Fright Zone to rescue Adora. These compounding betrayals only serve to confirm Catra's belief that Shadow Weaver has always loved Adora and not her. This pain causes her to pursue victory even more fervently. In her mind, all of her worth is coming from her ability to win against the rebellion, which is why she is willing to go as far as to attack Entrapta to ensure that happens. She honestly doesn't stop to think about the consequences of pulling the switch. She has to win. There are no other options. In Season 4, she goes as far as to directly challenge Hordak for control of the Horde. She knows that she has been the one leading their forces, while Hordak has been holed up in his sanctum working on vanity projects, as she calls them. By the end of the season, she has beaten Hordak, and for all intents and purposes, commands the Horde. But that victory is hollow.
I thought winning would be different.
Along the way, she has managed to push away Scorpia, Lonnie, Kyle, Rogelio, and even Double Trouble. She has become so obsessed with filling the void in her heart with power and status that she has managed to burn every bridge she had. Double Trouble shatters her when they reveal that Catra is not the victim of repeated betrayals that she has told herself she is, but rather she is a toxic person who pushes away anyone who cares about her. This shakes her victim mentality to its core. In this moment, she is confronted with the truth, and it brings her so low that when Glimmer arrives and points her staff at her, all Catra says is, "What are you waiting for?" Once on board Horde Prime's ship, she once again tries to make herself useful, to manipulate him the way she manipulated Hordak. But she quickly discovers that her usual tactics won't work. She is effectively a prisoner, stripped of all her hard-fought power and status, and left utterly alone with nothing but memories of those she has hurt on her climb to the top. She is at her lowest point. All of the pain she has caused in her quest for power has left her with nothing to show for it, and no one left who cares about her. In her solitude, she seeks out Glimmer, and a surprising bond grows between the two prisoners, who have each alienated those that loved them. Talking with Glimmer reminds Catra of the one thing in her life that has ever actually filled the void in her heart: Adora, specifically her friendship and love. Catra comes to the painful realization that she has been in the wrong this whole time. She is forced to come to grips with the fact that she has been digging a deep hole in the wrong direction. She is racked with guilt, but when she learns that Adora is going to risk her life to save Glimmer, Catra decides to, as Glimmer put it, do one good thing in her life and save Adora. This phrasing is especially poignant because when Catra transports Glimmer off ship, she truly believes that this will be her final act. She fully expects to be brainwashed or marooned on a deserted planet or killed. At this point in her life, she has absolutely no self-worth at all, which is why she is so willing to throw her life away. Her mother figure never loved her, her only friend left her, and she pushed away anyone else who ever cared about her. This emptiness is captured perfectly when she says,
All I do is hurt people. There's no one left in the entire universe who cares about me.
But she is wrong. There's a person on the other end of that intercom that hasn't given up on her yet, and that person is going to make sure that this isn't Catra's final act.
Adora, you should have stayed away. Why did you come back? We both know I don't matter. You matter to me!
Catra has finally realized what will bring her lasting joy, and for the first time in her life she has been freed from the abusive surroundings that shaped her and prevented her from growing. But her journey of redemption has only just begun. While her sacrifice was significant, it does not erase the horrific deeds of her past, and she knows that. We see her hide away in her quarters, afraid of facing those she has hurt so deeply. All of the guilt she has been pushing onto others for years has come rushing back, and she is crushed by the weight of it.
You'd rather I left you there to die? What do you care? I know you all hate me! I never hated you!
Then you're even dumber than I thought.
But in the episode Taking Control, something important happens. Catra is forced to face Entrapta, arguably the person she has wronged the most. Her life is in Entrapta's hands, and she frees her from Horde Prime's control. Catra apologizes to Entrapta and receives forgiveness, which plants a seed of hope in Catra that maybe she can be a better person. That seed is watered when Bo and Glimmer scoot over and allow her to eat with them, and when Milog bonds with her, and when the other princesses allow her to join the rebellion. She has spent so long believing that the hole in her heart could only be filled by closing herself off and attaining power and status, but now she is slowly learning that being vulnerable and opening herself up to love and forgiveness is the only thing that will do that.
It's hard keeping your heart open. It makes you vulnerable, but it doesn't make you weak. And I have to believe it's worth it.
Her growth and redemption come to a climax as she holds Adora in her arms, begging her not to give up. In the ultimate act of vulnerability, she confesses her love for Adora and asks her to stay with her.
I've got you! I'm not letting go!
Don't you get it? I love you! I always have! So please, just this once, stay!
Stay.
Noelle was quoted as saying, her big heroic moment in the final season is actually just being able to ask Adora to stay. She has learned the power of vulnerability and love, and has left behind her old ways. So now that we understand Catra a little bit better, let's address those 3 points I brought up earlier. Number 1, she was toxic. She physically and emotionally abused Adora, and Adora shouldn't have taken her back. There's actually a lot of truth to this objection. Catra was toxic. We see her physically abuse Adora over and over again throughout the series, though one could argue that was because they were on opposite sides of a war. We see her psychologically manipulate Adora, attempt to control her with First One's tech, fling incessant insults at her, and try to blame her for the destruction caused by the portal that Catra opened. Beyond that, we see Catra's toxic tendencies on full display in her relationship with Scorpia. Despite Scorpia's relentless attempts at friendship, Catra constantly berates her, takes her for granted, and abuses her verbally and even physically. Scorpia put it mildly when she said,
"You're a bad friend."
For the first 4 seasons of the show, Catra was abusive, manipulative, emotionally unstable, and toxic. If this was the Catra that the show had asked me to ship with Adora, I would have rejected it outright. That relationship would not have worked, and it would have sent a bad message to the audience. However, the Catra that proclaimed her love for Adora in Season 5 was not the same Catra that she once was. Toxic people do not always remain toxic people. I'm happy to say that we all have the ability to grow and change. And Catra does 2 things in Season 5 that are essential for any former toxic person to do. She apologizes, and she demonstrates willingness to change. We see Catra give meaningful apologies to Adora, Entrapta, and Scorpia, and even more importantly, we see her put that remorse into action. Her rescue of Glimmer is a completely selfless act. She has nothing to gain from it, and everything to lose. We see her fight for the rebellion, and she doesn't fight back when Natasa and Frosta attack her. On Critis, she says she is working on her anger problem, or in other words, working to become a better person. Her journey of redemption in Season 5 is not linear. It's messy, and she sometimes takes a step backwards after a few steps forwards. And that's okay. Real change is always messy, but the important thing is, Catra is willing to face her greatest mistakes and work to change. Number 2. Catra did too much evil to be forgiven. She was beyond redemption. Let's review all of the evil things that Catra did during the show. She led the attack on Thamor. She led the failed attack on Selenius. She attacked Princess Prom, kidnapped Bow and Glimmer, and stole the sword. She left Adora hanging from a cliff. She attacked Brightmoon. She used First One's tech to infect Adora. She took Adora hostage. She attacked Entrapta and sent her to Beast Island. She lied to Hordak about Entrapta being a traitor and the portal being safe to use. She activated the portal. She attacked Adora and blamed her for the destruction caused by the portal. She captured the villagers of Elberon and tortured Shira. She used a pulse bot to injure Bo. She was repeatedly cruel to Lonnie, Kyle, and Rogelio. She was repeatedly cruel to Scorpia. And she helped lead the successful attack on Selenius. We are also meant to understand that she orchestrated many other battles for the Horde. Now, I won't deny that that's a pretty long rap sheet, and if all of those acts make her irredeemable to you, that's your prerogative. But if I may ask, who are we to decide what is forgivable and what isn't? In the show Avatar: The Last Airbender, Prince Zuko of the Fire Nation commits many atrocities in the first 2 seasons. He burns villages, attacks innocents, and constantly tries to capture the world's last hope for peace. However, he is still worthy of redemption, and winds up helping the heroes restore balance to the world. What if they had decided that Zuko had done too much evil, and was not worth forgiving? There's a very good chance they would not have been able to save the world. My point is that the power of forgiveness is only limited by the ability of those doing the forgiving. Catra knows full well how much evil she has done, as do the princesses, but that doesn't stop them from forgiving her and giving her the chance to make up for what she has done. Number 3. She was forgiven too quickly for doing one good thing, i.e., her redemption was too easy. Before I can fully explain this one, we have to pause for a second and talk about Shadow Weaver. Shadow Weaver was an abusive, manipulative, power-hungry person for the entire runtime of the show. Whether she was fighting for the Horde or the Rebellion, it seemed as though her primary goal was always self-preservation and the obtainment of power. But in the show's final episode, Shadow Weaver sacrifices herself to allow Catra and Adora to make it to the heart of Etheria. She was never fully redeemed, but she did do one good thing in her life. Her story is similar to that of Darth Vader from Star Wars. They both lived lives of darkness, but in the end they heroically sacrificed themselves to allow the world to be saved. These types of redemption stories are quick and typically unsatisfying. They don't show the hard work that comes with making up for the past mistakes and rectifying wrongs. And for Shadow Weaver this worked, because she was always meant to be a gray character, neither fully evil nor fully redeemed. But for Catra, this kind of redemption would have been wholly unsatisfying. If we as the audience are truly supposed to buy Catra's change of heart, then we have to see her put in that hard work. We have to see her apologize to the people she's hurt. She has to put in the effort to earn their forgiveness. And as I hope I've explained so far, I think the show does an excellent job of portraying those things, especially given the amount of time it had to do so. But maybe you feel as though Adora was too quick to forgive Catra after she saved Glimmer. She hadn't put in any of that work yet, so maybe Adora shouldn't have forgiven her so easily. Maybe you feel like Scorpia was too quick to forgive Catra after the world had been saved. This is just one guy's opinion, but from what I saw, it never looked as though Adora or Scorpia had ever truly given up hope on Catra. They had each made the decision that they needed to stop trying to save Catra because it wasn't working and it was only bringing them pain to try. They each decided to walk away until Catra was ready to change. But I don't believe for a second that either one of them ever gave up on her. And as soon as she showed that she was ready to be a different person, they were each ready to give her that chance. And that's not toxicity. That's love. That's loving yourself enough to protect yourself from toxic behavior, but loving your friends enough to give them the chance to be redeemed when they're ready. At the end of the day, you still may not feel as though Catra deserved redemption. You may not feel that she deserved Adora, and that's fine. We can all have our opinions. I just hope that this video has helped show you why I, and so many others, love Catra's story. To us, it proves that we are all redeemable, no matter how grievous our sins. It shows us that we are all worthy of love, no matter the mistakes we've made. And it displays the power of keeping our hearts open to allow love in.